I think it's running. Excellent. Hey everybody, we're welcome to the Cluster Ops meeting, first of 2017. Yay! So we've got an agenda. Please post. I'll post the links. I didn't spend my first days of 2017 getting organized. So, Jason, you're muted. You have anything to kick off and start?
Not specifically, although I'm glad to see everybody and really looking forward to what I predict to be the year of cluster ops. So
that'd be awesome. And we ended the year with some discussions on format and what we want to do. So, Jason, thank you for stepping forward and helping organize that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So please get your names in the attending list, and we'll keep moving things forward. Let's see. And along those lines, we're recording videos as per community standard, and there is now a Cluster Ops video channel where these recordings will end up. That's part of the broader Kubernetes community pieces. Oh, yeah, we actually do have a bug scrub stuff. Okay. Other agenda items for people to add?
I think we should have a touch base about the Ops Summit.
Totally.
So I'll put that in there.
Okay. Ooh, I had another question. I'll keep adding them. In the last meeting, we had talked about etcd version 3 migration, and one of the things that was discussed at some length in the community meeting is that it looks like that will be in 1.6. So I guess the sooner people look at that, the better. Just as a be prepared.
Yeah, and I had a conversation with Brandon Phillips about it actually. And their general tact is that they aren't expecting people to do migrations. They're expecting that most people who would be using etcd3 will be firing up new clusters. So they do have some documentation about how to do those migrations. Apparently, it's not a totally breaking change. There is a way to do a migration, but it is not super straightforward, and it's definitely the path forward is not as they see it to migrate, but to actually replace. So just philosophically.
Does anybody know if 1.5 is compatible with version 3? Can we kick over version 3 right away and start doing version 3 deployments?
I think there was a flag for that. I'll have to take a look. According to their docs, it doesn't really look like it's that crazy of an upgrade process. You just have to start with a healthy cluster. You shut it down. etcd3 supports running in compatibility mode. So if you have a 2.x series deployed, it will downgrade the protocol and run that 2.x protocol until all the nodes are reporting that they're running as etcd3, and then it upgrades the cluster to v3.
Oh, that sounds pretty damn easy.
I linked the upgrade process in the sidebar here in the chat. I know that doesn't help the recording, but that should help anybody that's curious about this upgrade path. Now, I haven't tested this.
I'll throw it into the notes.
Yeah, I haven't either. This would be a fun thing to try. So.
Yeah, this is what I'm starting working on this week. So I'll definitely have some early feedback for you next week with how that goes.
Cool.
That sounds awesome. Actually, it sounds pretty straightforward.
I can understand what they would want you to do, the fresh redeploy, because that eliminates something that maybe they haven't covered in this doc. There might be a way for this to kind of explode.
Yeah.
I've been, for most of my upgrades, I've been doing migrations even if they weren't recommended, just as gives an opportunity to test things out before sending production traffic. But I was wondering, all of that's been manual so far. I was wondering if anyone was aware of any automation for like migrating that other people have found or written or built for migrating the services themselves in clusters.
Actually, I've got some preliminary work on that. It's geared around the snapshot and restore functionality that's baked into etcd, which is effectively just a tarball, and you drop that directory back in place, and then you reinitialize the cluster. But we call it snapshot and restore in our charms. Let me pull up the GitHub link, and I'll post that in the sidebar as well. And you want me to cross-post these to the notes? Is that right, Rob?
Yeah, I'd rather if you just put them in the notes.
Okay. I'll put them there then, no problem.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a way to create a backup and restore from an etcd perspective. Were you talking about more generally from upgrade patterns for Kubernetes?
I was talking about migrating between Kubernetes clusters, but yes, also the etcd data would be part of that, obviously. But
I'm sorry, I misunderstood the problem domain. My mistake.
We've been working on doing a staged migration for Kubernetes components, where you could move the system from one basically move all the kubelet and the kube control endpoints to a new version, and then migrate the API server and the scheduler and controller as a second step. So you could do a migration stage from that perspective. So I've been working on some automation to do that.
I guess what I was talking about was like build an entire cluster and then transitioning services. So far we've been keeping all of our state out of the clusters. Actually, we're in AWS, and so we just point to it's mainly updating the services within them to point at the new like backing services like RDS or Elasticache or whatever, and then pointing DNS if necessary, or in some cases switching the ELBs that were already deployed, switching them over to the new cluster. That's very manual though, and not recommended for various reasons.
So go ahead.
Well, I was going to say for fixed resources, definitely Deis is working on some tools that are going to help that. So basically putting off cluster resources with on cluster hooks. So that life cycle is going to get a lot easier with Steward, but that's a bit green right now. So in terms of phase migrations, I think that I'd love to see that be one of the things that this group specifically tackles in 2017, because I feel like everybody's jumped on board the Kubernetes ship and everybody's happy until you start looking at how you actually manage these things moving forward. And I hate to see all the rats leave the ship as quickly as they got on the ship.
Day two's a bitch.
It is.
Yeah, I just. Oh, sorry, Rob.
That's fine.
Yeah, I just wanted to toss out that if the Etsy 2 to 3 export and import was so simple, I don't know, almost feels like too good to be true, right? If it was that straightforward, they would have recommended that as the default, right?
Yeah. Well, I think that what CoreOS is trying to do, I think by recommending new clusters, is simply to get out of the business of supporting the migration process, because there's so many Franken clusters out there that I can totally understand why Brand wouldn't want anything to do with that. So, it's like, here's the migration stuff if you need it, want it, but, you just start up a new cluster, guys. I think that's kind of their tag, which makes sense. They're pretty spread thin right now just on etcd generally. I don't know who the main developers on it are, but I don't think it's a really huge chunk of people.
Makes sense.
I had some really good chats with Dan Gillespie at the Linux Foundation meeting that we had in December of last year, and that was the majority of where their time was going, and he was part of the ancillary developers on that in Flannel. So he said that their migration path worked pretty well. Somebody that hasn't tried it, it's hard to make any guesstimations until we've actually done it, I feel. It's just navel-gazing until you've done it.
Well, let's maybe let's assign some homework. You're going to do it, Charles, but I might actually do it as well, just to go through the process and see. Um, I think that'd be interesting.
Yeah, actually, I would love to contrast and compare notes where if you upgraded and it worked fine and then I did it and it caught on fire, I would be interested in finding out why that's the case and what the differences were between our deployment routines. Because
Yeah,
charms, and I'm not sure how Dace is deploying the etcd clusters. I assume it's co-hosted with the other Kubernetes components, right?
no, actually, well, I mean, it depends on the EDE stuff is run differently than the stuff that I build for clients at OneUp. But when I build one out, I always do a separate cluster.
Oh, you are my hero. That you are like one of 5 people that I've heard say that, and that is key, I feel.
Well, if you go out and look for Etsy Death on GitHub, it's under my repo here. You can just search for it. I wrote a whole battery of tests that you can use to apply against etcd clusters to see all the ways they fail.
Oh, this is amazing. Oh, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Dude, this is great. I'm angry that I'm only just finding this now.
No. Yeah, it's fun. So I pretty much, in terms of how etcd fails, I've seen it all. So that's definitely made me strongly inclined to have autonomous etcd clusters, especially since if the key space fills up, there's no recovery. You're literally well and done once that happens. So,
the more you know.
Do you set up separate TLS for your cluster?
I don't. I'm sorry. It's
No,
here, but
that's fine. No, we've talked about it, but we don't do it as a default. It just adds.
Yeah. I mean, I know that every security person would probably cringe, but it's like, well, come on, pick your battles. So.
Yeah, no, it makes sense to me. I'm not trying. I'm just asking we've talked about it, but it hasn't seemed like it was worth it.
Yeah.
I'm trying to figure out what etcd version we're using. Yeah, the pain is going to be that if 1.4 is not compatible with etcd 3, then you're going to end up with the switching the defaults would be a pain. But I guess that's backwards is pain in the ass no matter what you do.
Yeah. You meant 1.5, right?
No, well, so I'm trying to cross support 1.4 and 1.5. We're looking at our 1.5 stuff right now. And actually, one of the questions I had in the backlog was, is there a list of flag differences for 1.5? Because that's what we're trying to digest. But if we went ahead and said, let's deploy 1.5 clusters with etcd 3, which to me makes a ton of sense given this advice, then that would mean that 1.4 deployments would fail if you didn't also switch etcd back to version 2. Does that make sense? You end up with this, it's like, don't make this one change with these 3 without making these 3 or 4 other changes. But I don't know how many people, if we did 1.5, would care to test against 1.4.
I pretty much went through the whole grieving process after they flipped the switch this morning. So, well, I guess we're upgrading everything.
And I need to figure out where we even specify the etcd version. That's cool. All right.
And then I'm not sure if they mentioned if they were still if they're going to push everyone towards etcd 3 or what the life cycle is for etcd 2 for people that have to support that, or is that not a good place to ask that?
That's a good question.
Yeah, we should find out when etcd 2 will no longer do the job. Because I know that 1.6 is shipping with 3, but I don't necessarily think it's a hard requirement, but I don't know that.
Okay. Let me see what list they posted on.
Good. Thanks. Thank you for posting the GitHub link for Jason's repo. Cool.
It says, should the user choose to do so, you could just do storage backend equals etcd 2. but they didn't really say how long they're planning on. But they are interested in feedback on how migrations work for people. So I guess, Chuck, when you come back next week with your feedback, we can go ahead and pass that along to SIG Scale.
Yeah. I mean, if we're doing homework, we can make that like a formal response to them and give them our early findings and petition the community for more.
Yeah, they had so in the community meeting, I don't know if you were there earlier, but they did post a link to a survey that they're doing on etcd usage in production. So I'll see if I can grab that and put it in there as well, because we should probably all contribute to that. Let me find that.
That'd be cool. Oh. I'm trying to figure out where. I'm off agenda. Sorry, I'm distracted. That's all got me curious about etcd.
It's all right. I think technically we have that latitude. Okay, I've got the etcd survey here. I think I'll paste it in chat and also put it in the doc.
Right.
All right, so where are we at in the agenda, Rob?
Let me jump back to it. Yeah, so we had pulled, so our etcd install is an Ansible install that was based on somebody else's Galaxy stuff that we forked it. All right. Yeah, I don't think they're all here. I think he said next week.
Yep.
So we have a couple items. One was to scrub bugs and add the cluster ops tag, which I suspect something that could absorb the rest, whatever oxygen's left in the meeting. So my vote would be to push that to the back.
Okay.
Or we could time box it and do 20 minutes on it.
Why don't we do 20 minutes on it just to make sure it gets done?
Love it.
Do you mind being the driver of screen, Rob?
I would be happy to share my screen.
And I don't actually I'm not actually part of SIG Leads or anything yet, so we could probably get that done so I can start.
What's the Kubernetes? What GitHub place is this going to be? Kubernetes. Is it just the master Kubernetes issues list? No, Kubernetes. 4,000 issues. Share my screen. Screen.
The journey of 1,000 bugs begins with one issue.
That's true. I'm trying to not share every single thing on my desktop. You don't need both. You really don't want both screens. Here it is. Did that work?
It did.
Which screen are you seeing?
And you can actually pop that tab out and just share the one tab too if you want.
That's what I was trying to do. But did I grab the issues tab?
No, I don't know what you did.
All right,
This is like a getter tab. I think that's your.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Oh, yeah, probably just flipped. All right, let me try again.
And it also gives your tab or whatever window is being shared will have a green halo around it.
Ah, okay.
Just so you don't accidentally share
the problem I have is like there's 40 windows that I've opened. Let's see, issues. Should be the right one. Kubernetes.
Is there a way to make
Yeah,
it not
there it is.
force full screen on my client side?
There is. There's a top right button. There's a 4 arrows converging.
I do not see that.
Okay, let's see. We have labels. Yep, SIG cluster ops right there. And we can sort this by. I have no idea which way to sort it. All right. Wow.
Whoever's got something loud going, do you mind muting? Oh, better.
It worked. Thank you.
So
All right.
wait, so how are you labeling these?
So we can just go in. We should be able to pick one and then add a. I might not have permission.
Actually,
Well, it doesn't hurt to try until we try. Let's find one, right? Let's do this. You wanted to eat our vegetables early, so let's get this. Let's find
Okay.
one and then try to do it. And even if we only get a couple, or
Do I fix my sound?
yep, we can hear you.
Roger.
And we can just add links to the issues to the agenda under the appropriate point, and then we can sort out actually getting the actual labels later.
Right. Right. That's a good point. Thank you.
So we lost you for a while there, Rob. What were you saying?
I was trying to figure out how to make this work because there's so much stuff.
Yeah. Well, we were just talking. Even if we just get a couple of them, let's try to narrow this down. So I did a quick search for operations keyword, or maybe cluster. I don't know. We can just do a search for cluster operations.
I searched for sysadmin and I hope we get on this, but I got nothing.
Okay.
Wow, the 217 pages. Yeah, my concern was I was just starting to read them out loud with my dead headset, but
Okay.
implemented file. Yeah, and I'm assuming we don't care about kubeadmin. We could possibly eliminate a whole bunch of tags here.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
I don't know. I would say that kubeadmin bugs could be really impactful to operations specifically. If it's functionality that is not as expected, or
If it's a bug they're encountering, yes. If it's a bug in kubeadmin, I'm assuming that it's not as.
wow, just digging into these, it just makes me realize how vast of a task this is, and probably how we're going to have to do this asynchronously to start. And I think maybe we need to just catalog somewhere in a list of things we see as being appropriate.
So
Yeah.
why don't we try and get people to bring 2 bugs to the next meeting to triage, 2 or 3, just like drop them in the agenda as a thing.
Yeah.
What would be helpful for me would be some form of criteria for what, like in general, you think falls under the scope of would be deserving of a SIG cluster ops label, and then also what's the plan? Like, is there going to be a weekly meeting where it's like, okay, we identified these things that we as a group could help on, and we think that that is more valuable than just individuals who are going through it on their own without any labels? Like, what's the value add of the cluster ops label in particular? I'm not questioning that there is one. I'm questioning what it is.
No, why don't we use the time we budgeted to define that? That's exactly the right thing.
I think that's great. So for me, the cluster ops, so here's what I see as the most immediate win from that is that right now, as an operator, if I was going to search the issues and try and find something that's relevant, I would have the experience that we all just had looking at this thing like, where do I even start? So what I see is us being sort of the docents to the museum of issues, so that we can point out the ones that should be most important with to operators based on that tag. So essentially, and we would radiate that information to the community, say, hey, cluster operators, when you want to do a quick search to see what we see as being the ones that are applicable to production clusters that could be breaking, do a filter on this tag. And that'll at least get you started. Does that seem like a good start?
So to clarify that a little bit more, so what the ideal outcome would be, I as a cluster operator, I go do this, I search for this label, and I see things that might be breaking my cluster on an upgrade, or would it be more valuable to have something that, because usually what I see labels used for is, this would be something that I, as a cluster operator, could actually help on, like help other people figure out do this thing. So that's kind of the opposite of what I'm used to. Like that, not that that's an invalid use case, but usually when I'm looking to help with a project, I look at like either, you know, low-hanging fruit or things like that, or if I have a specialty in one particular area, like that's what a lot of these other labels are for. It's like, oh, this is related to this part of Kubernetes, so if I'm looking to contribute to this area, I click on that, I'm like, oh yeah, I can help with that.
Now, see, that's really interesting, because to me, the label, when it comes to an issue, the issue is, to me, what you'd want to radiate is what. Yeah, it's who's fixing it, but it's also who is impacted by it, which is a different thing. I mean, I guess that's taking the ops lens and applying it to the repo in that way, and that's really interesting.
We could maintain, so from that perspective, we could just maintain a list of bugs that we think are, you know, basically important for operators to be aware of without putting a cluster ops label on them.
Okay. But I feel,
so
I worry about keeping it dry, though. I mean, we don't want to be repeating issues elsewhere. And
right. Well, so no. My thought would be that we'd start maintaining a list of, these are the bugs we're tracking. Just copy the link, right? Use the bug list and say, here's the list of bugs that we're tracking, and then here's bugs that cluster ops should be involved in helping. So that this right. So the idea would be that if cluster ops is here, then we are involved in helping resolve the issue, not alerting people that this is an issue that they need to track.
So
yeah,
if just thinking about it from a like pragmatic use case for this group, it might be just what Rob wants you or whoever, or Jason, if you get the ability to add the labels, it could be something as you are browsing the list issue, that could just be a way of tagging things for discussion at the next meeting, for example. That could be and then you could be kind of, here's the link to the list of things that we're going to talk about. That seems to be a thing that like SIG storage or SIG auth, it's like they probably use this to asynchronously add things quickly because they're already in GitHub. They don't have to go open up a Google Doc and then you can search on it at the next meeting.
Jorge, you're muted.
Yeah, I just had an alternate way to come at this from the other angle. Maybe announce on all the lists or something, saying, hey, all operators, first of all, A, we exist. B, there's way too many bugs for us to go through there, and figure out which ones are important to you. So what we'd like to do is first come, first serve. If you're having operational issues with Kubernetes right now, please either come see us or start tagging your bugs with this label. And then, kind of doing the whole, we're here to help operators thing, right? Like if you're an operator and you're lost, you don't know where to go, one of the first things you should do is tap us. To kind of, like, I'm looking at some of these bugs and it's just like, So I'm kind of thinking, like, there's got to be a guy out there who's frustrated, filed a bug, and doesn't really know, without having to post to the big bad dev list.
The labels can only be added by people with the appropriate permissions on the repo, though.
Right.
So you just tell people to add this label.
Approach us to. Okay, let's say they're not using a label, but a bug is important to an operator. Whether they use the label or not, we probably wouldn't care. We'd put it on our little list and then eventually add the label or not. The idea is that an operator would know, if I have non-developer specific operational concerns, these guys go through a list of these, prioritize them, and figure out how we can help solve those. Do you understand what I mean? Like more of a social, like if you're having operational issues and you have a bug and you filed it and no one's responded to you, we'd be happy to all get together and have a look, pull you into one of these meetings if appropriate. You know what I mean? It would kind of give someplace. It would also give us a list of bugs that we know people care about right now, as opposed to us guessing. You know what I mean? Like what bugs are more important to people right now. So I was just trying to think about it coming from the other angle, as opposed to us going to dig through all the bugs by hand, because I've done that before too, and that's not awesome.
Yeah.
For us.
What if we went with something like an ops advisory tag, or something that's like that we are flagging certain issues as having specific impact on production clusters? Because I mean, to me, that is the thing that I'm hoping that our collective expertise can identify. Because like Josh, you're going to see things in your production cluster that nobody else has that kind of scale to see. Rob, you're going to see all this stuff in all the infrastructure that you're spinning up. It's going to give us unique perspectives on what could be seriously impactful in a production environment. So maybe we just come up with a label that's specifically an ops advisory or something like that.
So part of what I would say is that since anybody can just drop a bug in, I just created a table in the doc for us to drop bugs into for discussion. I agree with, I like the ops advisory issue, because you're basically saying, hey, this bug is something that's going to hit you if you're running a cluster. Yeah, we're gonna need a separate tag.
I like so Josh's thing about pitching in, I think, should be cluster ops, SIG cluster ops. Like those are things where we want to identify where we want to do the work. But I think if there is an informational tag, because there are other ones, like they have other informational tags, right, about what the priority is or whatnot. So I think we just need an informational tag as in addition to this is an issue that we're going to actively work. Because honestly, I don't know how many issues we're actively going to be able to work. So cluster operators are not exactly the most time wealthy people. So
I guess, yeah. I like what you're saying. I think we're going to end up needing both. So what we're saying is that the cluster ops tag is going to be use the cluster ops tag for things that we're going to actually help with.
Yeah.
Well, it looks like they have SIG/storage tag already. I think we should follow SIG/OpenStack. I think we should follow their nomenclature so we don't get reassigned. So it looks like they have
SIG/ops or.
Yeah, we didn't create those tags, so we do need to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think Rob or Jason, you guys have to reach out to, I'm not sure who actually, but someone with the ability to both. I think the tag already exists, doesn't it? You just need the ability to add it, and then you as a SIG leader will have the ability to, as you come across bugs, maybe bugs that were submitted to the doc or whatever, you can add that label, and then you can use that label for later searches, possibly to prompt discussion in this meeting, or possibly to prompt action for potential contributors who aren't necessarily diving in and making deep level code changes, but know how to configure clusters and have an operational experience and might have some advice on the issue.
Right.
So just to be clear here, are we talking, because right now there is a label that's SIG cluster ops, so SIG/cluster-ops. Are we saying that we want to use the SIG ops instead, or do we want to just stick with the one we got?
I think we should stick with that label that already exists. We just need, the SIG leaders just need the ability to actually use it.
Right.
And then the way that you can use it would be as you're, it's really just a helpful thing as you're going through GitHub issues already. I can't add it. I'm not asking for the permissions to add it. The way that in other projects I participate in, that's how we use labels, is we use for either tagging things as like usually what we're doing is tagging as easy first bugs is the most common label, and then we add a link to that and in whatever documentation. So this could be like a easy bug, or maybe a bug that an operator who's looking to contribute or identify for discussion or thought, or you could use it for multiple purposes. You could also use it as, as an operator, I want to be aware of this issue as well. So it could just be just a way to pare down the search is how I see it.
Okay, so Rob, you and I, and I don't know if you want to bring Mike into it or not, but we should probably talk to somebody and get permission to label that sucker.
Yeah, Mike almost certainly already has the ability to add labels.
Yeah, Mike's got super sysadmin pros on that thing.
Somebody's actively been. There is a. I don't know if you're on the list, Jason. You should be. There's a cluster leads. There's a SIG just for the cluster leads to ask questions exactly like this. So there's a Google group for it.
Can you send me a link to that in the?
Yeah, I'm going to do it. Yep.
Thank you, sir. Cool. Yeah, this will be great. I think this is getting into the meat of what we need to be doing. This is fantastic.
Let's see. I'll find it. They just sent out an email on it because that's how the video stuff got disseminated.
All right. Okie doke. So just time check. We got about 17 minutes left.
Let's talk about the get together.
Yeah. So one of the things, as we've been brainstorming about how do we up the ante as far as getting more people involved in the SIG, is to organize a 2017 Ops Summit. I'd like to see it happen around maybe in the late summer, fall time. That would be great. Give us plenty of time to organize. But essentially, this would be where we'd hopefully have it on site with some organization that's implemented and widely using Kubernetes, and we would have it would be vendor agnostic. We may have vendor sponsors, but we're certainly not going to be, I don't know how to put it, but a lot of vendors will just go in and kind of just overrun it with, hey, you have to use this thing to do this or whatnot, but have it be very vendor agnostic. So to that end, we would probably do a call for proposals from cluster operators for topics that would be of particular interest to the groups. And it would be nice to just meet everybody and do all that stuff. I think pretty straightforward, but just get us all in a big room and have some serious quality time as a unit.
Yeah. Would you consider doing it sooner than the fall? You think?
I would consider it. Sure. I think that would be great. I just don't know how much time it's going to take to organize, given that we're all
Event planning is hard, and rushing things, I wouldn't recommend it based on.
I think if we did the first one as open spaces and we had a sponsor, I think you could do it. Like to get us space. I think you could do it fast. I think we could do it faster. The thing I'm concerned about is fall travel schedule gets crazy. The other options for us to piggyback on another event. Hold on a second.
Yeah, I was going to ask, why not just have a meetup? I mean, have a meetup at KubeCon or Cloud Native Con.
Yeah, I'm looking at the LWN events calendar now, and
Can you post a link to that, Ari?
oh, and then you could just scroll left and right.
Right. One of the things that we could also do is find an event that a lot of people might be going to. The one on my calendar right now is Glue. And find a corporate sponsor in Denver or in Boulder or something like that who has some space, and just come in. You come in a day early for and do an extra day in a conference situation like that.
Yeah, that's totally doable. And, we've got a lot of resources in Denver Boulder.
So do we have enough to take this to the broader community and say, hey, we're thinking of having this type of event, and then we want to basically piggyback it? So actually, I think we can make a decision. I would suggest we piggyback this on another event.
Okay.
Instead of trying to do it as a standalone event. And so the question becomes, what do we want to piggyback on, right? Then you could try and piggyback on Scale. Where is Scale this year?
I think GlueCon, man, that might be the one.
Which one? I love Glue. It's a
Scale's in Pasadena, by the way.
Okay. When is it?
Beginning of March.
Which is pretty soon.
Yeah.
GlueCon gives us May. And if you're not, so Scale had sort of morphed into this web performance thing, and they're pushing back and splitting it. So Scale's going back to being an ops performance show.
We could do, if you want something lightweight that we could do, because our team's already planning on attending Scale, we could do like a BOF or something. If you're looking for like least amount of planning possible, but we could do it almost immediately, we could do it at Scale with a BOF, or I know the organizers already.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
that might be an option for us. There's a open source infrastructure day also on Thursday before Scale.
Ooh, interesting.
Let me find the link to that.
Yeah. So we're Deus is sponsoring GlueCon. We're Copper sponsors, which I guess is one level up from 10. Or but so we're already dialed into that.
And I'll be there too. I know. I'm trying to think of who I know who's a Kubernetes user who has space in that area.
If you're just piggybacking, you could do both. I mean, you can say, hey, we happen to be going to this conference already. This other group happens to be already going to this conference.
Yep.
And I would actually encourage that. And then just because there's no reason not to, really, if you're not having to put together CFPs and event planning and stuff, and it's just asking for a room in an existing conference.
Yeah.
Well, definitely one where we're sponsoring will give us a little more leverage.
So what I'm wondering, so for Glue, Comcast is right there.
Yep.
In Interlochen. So it might be possible to say, look, we want to have, it just depends on how many people we're going to get. But I would suspect we can arm twist that, and I know the team really well. Arm twist them into saying, hey, look, we want to use your space, either in downtown Denver or ideally in Interlochen. Let's make that happen.
Okay. Return Path is also another Kubernetes user.
Do they have some good space in the area?
I believe so. They have a giant building there, so right in Broomfield.
Perfect.
Let me make a note to myself to get a hold of the Return Path people and find out what their deal is.
So this is a
Yeah,
good
this is-
topic for the community meeting to say, look, we want to piggyback at Glue to have an actual ops summit the day before GlueCon. I like this too. Is there somebody with a corporate space that we could do?
And this is in Boulder, not Denver, right?
It's in between.
Between
So
on Highway 36. Yeah.
either would be adequate. And it really fits the GlueCon agenda anyway. Not as well as it actually fits the scale agenda even better, but
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now I'm liking this. Then we can do a road show. Do a couple different places. Catch people in the mid part of the country, and maybe in the fall we could figure out one on the East Coast too. That would be nice.
yeah.
I'm happy to host one at my house.
Be good.
I got a hot tub. It's all good.
We've got a co-working space in Austin now that we can use.
Where did you end up?
I don't know. Dustin and Kevin know. I'm just asking them right now. I'm trying to find out who the admin is in charge of that, but I get the feeling the Austin area would be a great turnout for Kubernetes.
Yeah,
I mean, especially if you did it around KubeCon.
yeah.
Yeah.
I would highly recommend looking at if you have access to a space, if you want to together
Yeah,
something.
I'll take an item to investigate that possible. I can't promise anything, but
And DockerCon is in Austin this year also, and so that would be another one to piggyback.
Yeah, there's already the Kubernetes Leadership Summit is happening then anyway, so there's already some gravity around Kubernetes at that or community organization at that time, so that would be good.
Are people planning to come to DockerCon?
We still go, but I don't think we get a booth or anything.
It's gonna be a weird year. It's in my hometown, so I'll be here. And if we want to plan an event, we can definitely. I don't have any space, but it's not hard to find a downtown venue.
One of my coworkers is jokingly saying if we can make Kubernetes on PowerPC be a thing, getting IBM in Austin would be no problem.
That's true. So, I mean, I could definitely get IBM to give us space, but the problem is that if you're here for DockerCon, you don't want to go north it's just a pain in the ass. We want to find a downtown space, but it's not a problem.
Cool.
Well, I know for a fact Capital Factory would host a meetup, a meeting, and they have a good space. So yes, if we do Austin around DockerCon, I can definitely find us room for a meeting around DockerCon.
Okay, cool.
You can do the keynotes. Sorry.
All right, so we got a bunch of different threads going to be spinning out. We can look at that. Excellent.
Yeah. No, I think we've got a couple of good locations, and I also suspect OpenStack Summit is going to have a ton of Kubernetes activity around it, because as far as I can tell, Kubernetes is taking over OpenStack.
One of my bets for 2017 is they're just going to rebrand that ODS as the Distributed Computing Summit or something. Watch.
Oh gosh, yeah, I think you're right. All right. Before I on a recording burn everybody I typically like to work with, I'm gonna quit while I'm ahead. But I think piggybacking on these events would make a ton of sense. And actually, one of the things we could do is while we try and build a bigger event like a Glue or something like that, I would suggest we formalize some meetups around these events and actually work on face-to-face, because that to me should be a mission for us, is to connect people face-to-face.
100% agree.
All right, so let's see. Did somebody capture some of these dates in the notes? I wasn't.
I'm just going through and pasting the actual links to these events in there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm gonna actually try and get some date locations. April 17 to 20.
Irregardless, when we go to scale, I'm planning on doing Kubernetes demos and whatnot the whole time. So I'll make sure I add advertisements for the SIG and whatnot as appropriate and all.
Cool.
We can make that like a landing page for your demo there, George. Just constantly deploying the advertisement.
Actually, I was thinking like SIG cluster ops stickers, be like, cluster broken? Here you go, buddy.
Oh, that's cool.
Can it have a couple of aspirin attached to it?
We could totally do stickers. All right, that's it. I'm putting.
What if that's our sticker? What if it's an aspirin that's cut out like the Kubernetes logo?
Oh, man.
putting stickers on the agenda.
That's the best thing ever.
Or I was thinking like a guy's head with a drill.
No.
How about something simpler? Cluster oops.
Cluster oops.
I like that.
Boy.
That's great.
All right.
We just cross out one of the O's. That'd be great.
Let's see.
Because, like I was mentioning earlier, that would also really help kind of getting the word out that people don't have to suffer in silence. There's a group of us that are willing to help them.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. I love it. All right.
That is going to wrap up our agenda. I'm going to move these questions up to the next agenda. Oops, actually, and the manual way. I would love to, if we have time, to actually spend a little bit of thought around what does an upgrade look like. I loved the one that we started with etcd.
All right.
And
Thank you, everybody, for attending and being engaged and being a part of this. Sincerely appreciate it.
That's awesome. Thank you all. I'll see you
All right.
next
See you guys next time.
See you in a week.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, guys.
Cheers.